Hello everyone. Take a few sips of my coffee before I start. I do apologize if the lighting's not correct or the fan is blowing in the background. It's just what it is at the moment. I tried to edit the coloring, or not the coloring, the lighting a little bit to help but make it look more decent, but I don't know. Anyways, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Life isn't perfect. I've been kind of putting off this video for a few reasons why. I try to make the first video. Because it's something that I need to get off my chest. It's something that I need to express myself personally. Um, that's not gonna be the easiest, so do bear with me. I could jump from different topics, but the main focus is something that has been on my heart to talk about it recently, and that's about child abuse or abuse in general. And I'm not saying necessarily I was abused, like physically abused. Um, what I'm getting at is there's a lot coming out, truth of people who've been abused. So I wanted to speak on that and address, because I already mentioned it to my friend Amanda. She's she's really trying to be more of an activist, which is great. We all in some way should be an activist, to advocate for people that don't have a voice. And so, first of all, I want to pretty much put her on the spotlight with that. As hard as it may be for her to come out about her story, it really encouraged me to speak out about what happened to me. And before I get into it, what happened to me as a child up until this point, and pretty much speak out against what happened to me. And for me, it's not something that can really be done because I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to mistakes, we all make mistakes. Even parents make mistakes. Um, and like for me, I have no hate bone in my body for anyone. I know there's been a lot of people that have hurt me, which I'm going to share into what happened as a child and up at this point. Um, my perspective has changed, and I also want this video, if it gets out to either people that been victimized or survivalists, I want them to know it's okay to share your story. It's okay to let the truth be heard. And a lot of people, and I feel like even for me, it's really hard to talk about these hard, painful topics. And just recently, like right after this happened, like the day after, I was trying to post a video about this, but then I deleted it. It was in my deleting file or my trash file, but I deleted it today, so just start out from scratch. Um, it's like I'm wearing blue for to assist. Anyways, I don't know. I'm just thinking. Um, but yeah, it's about time we step out of ourselves and really express truth be given what's going on in our lives. And I feel like a lot of times, even for me, like I was saying, I broke down, literally broke down at work. And this is complete opposite of what I was going to talk about. But um, I literally broke down crying at work. Not because of what happened in my past so much, but just things prior. Because I used to work at this job, and everything just bubbled out because things, injustice was happening to me. And I don't know what it is, but when you feel like you're putting a lot of time and effort into a job or any situation, sometimes it feels useless. And so those who are speaking up, who are using their voice, not And the thing is, anyone that speaks up about their experience is their personal business and their personal experience. I just feel like a lot of people, they tend to blame those people or tend to want those people silent because they don't want the truth out. It's almost like for a while now, my fiance and I have been watching X Files. Well, there's a lot of things in X File that could be questionable to some people. That the truth gets out, especially if they're working on these cases. It could disrupt a lot of things. And I just found out today. For some of you that follow that page, the Preacher Boys. It's not necessarily Preacher Boys. I mean, I'm sure he's a Christian or had that experience, but um, anyways, I'm getting off topic. But anyways, I just usually go with whatever's going through my mind like that. But anyways, I'm trying to get on point here. Sorry. uh, oh, now I'm all messed up. See, I'm all flabbergasted. Alright, let's get back on track, people. Alright. Sorry. I want to hold this, but it looks too much. Okay. Alright, back on track. Now this cup's in the way. I'm sorry. Alright. I was talking about X-Files. Like, a lot of people, when it comes to conspiracies, a lot of that's becoming truer and truer. But there's a lot of things hidden in plain sight that we can't see. And I just found out on that page, the Preacher Boys, that a pastor, I think it was his son, actually molested people. I don't know how much true that is, but that kind of freaked me out because I knew that family. I mean, I've associated with them. I've said hi to them. I've met them. So it's crazy how a lot of things are coming out. Now, I don't want to get too much in deep about that, but anyways, I'm trying to center myself, trying to get the message that I need to get message out. So give me a few minutes to just regather my thoughts before I just ramble on about nonsense. Alright, anyways, back to Amanda. She spoke up about her truth because a video got out by a friend of hers, Joseph, and he even did a video recently I watched where he was speaking about his experience with Agape and Circle of Hope. Now, if any of you that don't know it, it is a girls' home and a guys' ranch to help troubled teenagers, but as far as I know, there's been a lot of abuse through the years. I don't know so much about Agape right now, but I do know there's a lot of questionable things. A lot of things going on in that home that shouldn't have been happening. And I feel like a lot of people feel like the Bible is the answer. In some degrees, I feel like my personal opinion about the Bible is like there's a lot of things not in it, like a lot of things taken out of it, but that's besides the point. I just feel like a lot of people feel like that's the best resort to go to give to kids that come into these homes. But one thing that they forget is these kids come usually from broken homes, abusive situations, and a lot of times it's not that they're troubled, it's the fact that they're being rescued out of situations and parents can't handle them. And my biggest concern about these homes, people need to be proactive about speaking against these. And a lot of people need to look up reviews before you send your kids, because that's literally putting your responsibility on other people you don't really know to take care of your children. Even foster care system, I feel like, is messed up because here these kids are going to foster care, but yet why is it 99% of the time when they get in foster care, kids are being abused, kids are being raped or molested, people need to do their background check and really, check up on these people. Even people part of homes. I feel like the Bible necessarily to me is not the answer, because you're bringing in these kids basically in your home, which is a home. And it's like, I feel like a lot of people just do their own thing and put their religion or the Bible onto these kids when they actually need therapy. And maybe in some way people can use the Bible as a way to give therapy, but I don't feel like the kids necessarily need the Bible, because if you're put into, let's say, foster care, the system, and you've been abused up into birth, the abusive situations, abandoned, neglected, and then you're into foster care, and you're kind of in a shaky grounds as it is, and you've been victimized, and then somehow that doesn't work, where you're victimized again over and over, and then you come to the boarding schools, and they do hideous things, like they think it's discipline, but it's actually harming them. I feel like there's a way to discipline either a child or a teen, without making them feel like a victim, without making them feel like they don't have a voice. And a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people see as we need to cram as much as knowledge of the Bible in their mind, but at the end of the day, what are they really learning from it? And yes, they can take the truths of the Bible, but I feel like what they really need is psychologists to come in, or even Christian psychologists, to help them overcome these traumas. That's just my personal opinion, but I feel like they literally need, it's not so much come in with the Bible, they literally need someone who has good intentions and give them a place of security and safety and emotional support through this. Because me and what I've gone through for the past years, I've got to that breaking point where I literally had to reach out to a therapist. Not probably in the less expensive way, but I literally online had to reach out to a therapist because my mental space was not the best place. I wasn't necessarily suicidal, but it's kind of funny, but she was a tarot reader. I watch her videos, but she gave more therapeutic advice. And so I looked her up, went to her website, and she helped me. She tremendously helped me. One of the things I can take away that maybe the Bible doesn't necessarily teach, maybe in some instance, but we plague our mind so much and we don't know it. The things that we've gone through, we can easily take it as a lesson. Take it, not necessarily a lesson, but take it as a way to empower ourselves, to empower others. That's why we go through a lot of these gnarly things and situations, because it's to help people. It's help to heal the collective. It's not just a one-sided thing. It's to help people. Because you and yourself, if you feel alone, you feel shitty. You feel like you can't make it on your own. But when you know that someone else has gone through similar things, it eases that pain. It eases that comfort to know that someone else is going through that. So, that's what really did it for me when I listened to Amanda's story. I've listened to many people who are survivalists. And for me, I don't consider myself necessarily a victim of my situation. I just feel like we're all participants. And I know that sounds cliche, it sounds kind of hurtful a little bit, but we all had a part in a situation that maybe we didn't choose, but it was there to help us. In some way, our soul needed that soul growth, whether it was parents who taught us wrong, or was it something that we had to go through to be the person that we are. Maybe if we didn't go through that, we wouldn't have been stronger, or we would have a different story. So everyone has their own story. Everyone goes through their personal battles to be able to reach certain individuals. And I'm not saying we're all separate. We're all connected. We all have that uniqueness about us that sometimes we go through harder things than others, or sometimes, people don't understand us because they've never really been in that situation. But I feel like at some point all of us have been abused. All of us have been victimized. But that doesn't have to be our story. It can just be a stepping stone to help us. But I do feel like it is our story. It is what molds us, but it doesn't define us. It doesn't strip us away of who we really are inside. It just enhances us to go forward and to realize that every bit of pain that we've suffered, every bit of cost that cost us in some way freedom, is another step to freedom in some way, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go into the story of pretty much, and I've been I've been writing a little bit here and there. I really need to get back to it, a little bit of what I went through, but it's not so much until because I feel like the best way you can honestly heal is by speaking it. Once you speak, it's spoken, and so mote it be. It heals you in some way. Because I feel like the worst person, or the worst, not person, but like the worst thing you can do to yourself, and to remember to yourself, the way you speak to yourself, would you speak that to a child, or to your child if you have a child? The way you put yourself down, would you put yourself or your child down? That's the thing to ask yourself. And it's a process, I feel like, when it comes to healing, to really get out of this negative energy. So wherever you were at that point, lift yourself up. If your parents couldn't been there for you the way they needed to be, you be there for yourself. You be your parent. You guide yourself. You support yourself. You comfort yourself. And I think one of those ways that I had to do for myself is literally go through meditation to heal that part of myself. Literally see myself as a child or as an adult. At times, very times, where I needed to pull myself out of a situation and comfort myself as a child or an adult. So I'm going to give you two different scenarios that actually happened to me. One was when I was about 8 years old, and the other time when I was married to my ex. So I do want to put out a trigger warning. So just so you know ahead of time, there could be some graphic things here and there, but not too much. But I'm laying that out. So if you do need to get help, there's always hotlines out there. I'm not familiar with the hotlines, so I'm putting up that the trigger warning. I should put that down at the link, trigger warning. It's really hard, especially I think it's the best time to talk about because yesterday was Father's Day. I don't know what it is about Father's Day and Mother's Day is really hard for me. And I think a lot of it, I'm not around family. And, I do miss my mom and dad, but there's so much parts of me that don't still understand why things had to happen. I've kind of shared it in my previous video that I'm going to tell you the first thing. When I was about 8, I was with my sister in the kitchen table, or not kitchen table, on the ground. I think I was in the kitchen ground or sitting, playing with matches. And some of it's very faded. like in and out thinking of like what it actually looked. And so basically I was playing with matches. And I don't know if it's necessarily I was testing out the matches or I was just necessarily just playing with them with a candle or something. Now that I think about it, it might have been that. Um, so basically, my dad noticed that my sister and I, it's funny because it's a funny thing. Kids play in the baths and stuff, which we got spankings for, but um, my dad noticed I was playing with matches, but it's weird. He never talked to my sister about it, which is weird. Maybe I was just there. I don't know. So basically, he noticed I was playing with matches and he wanted to teach me a lesson, or what he said. He wanted to teach me a lesson. So he brought me over to the stove, or I walked to the stove or whatever, because he wanted to teach me a lesson. And so he told me, I want to teach you a lesson that when you play with matches, you get burned, or something to that effect. It's really hard to remember because it's been so long, but basically, he had me place my hands on the stove. And before I did that, I questioned in my mind, why would you want me to put my hands on a hot stove? Like, it's one of those stoves you turn on, it has a clicking noise. I think it's a gas stove. So basically, I questioned that at first, and then I went and did what he told me to do, is put my hands on the hot stove. And that really burnt my hands. That really hurt. I felt the pain of it. I felt like the anguish of it, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And I feel like at that point was the very point I lost trust in my dad. Um, then sooner after that, my mom found out about her. She was mad, and she told him that, you could have just spanked her. There is something about when kids are playing with certain things that seem harmless. I feel like if it's a knife, you want to be extra careful, but it's not so much with matches. Because I know sometimes kids will test you, kids will do things just because they're curious. I mean, use your own judgment if you're a parent, but I feel like in this situation, I necessarily didn't need to be taught the lesson. I just need to be realized that, learn it for myself, you know. But that point, my mom found out shortly after that, and she was mad and said, you should have just spanked her instead. So after that, we went to the pastor's house, and his wife wrapped my hand with bandages and oil, or oil and bandages, and they hurt so bad. And I didn't remember it until now, but like, yeah, they had blisters. Like, after that all happened, they had blisters. And one of the things, I don't know if it has any bearing on it, but whenever I get burnt or burnt with hot water, it just freaks me out. Hot water freaks me out in itself because it's hot, but it kind of triggers that feeling of being burned almost. Or if I get burned, that kind of stings, but it's like I'm used to it at this point. But yeah, I had blisters, but I don't know if it has any bearing on it, but I do suffer from hand dermatitis. I have no idea if it has anything to do with that. I know my skin has always been sensitive, but it could be because of that. I'm not blaming him, I'm not hating on him, but it could be because of that. And I really do feel like my dad has, well, not, he's never really, now that I think about it, mentioned, because I have forgiven him. I've forgiven my mom, but there's still a part of me after that has happened that it's really hard as my relationship differs with my parents because I feel like when they say I love you, especially my mom, sometimes I don't feel it. I feel like it's empty. I feel like there's a void of it. Like, I'm not saying is, I think a lot of it is what I went through with my ex. Because I would say, or I'd say, I love you, and he said, no, you don't. And then it started questioning things about my parents. Because when they say I love you, sometimes I don't feel it. Sometimes I feel empty. But sometimes I still go through in my mind, like when that happened, I was like, why did my dad think this was the best choice? And I know a lot of parents, especially in the older days, they feel like spankings are the answers just because a kid's curious. I mean, it's really hard to think what to do in the best situation. If your kids are getting into messes, if your kids are being mean and nasty, I feel like there's another way to handle it. I'm not a parent, but I mean, I've had my share with kids where it's like sometimes, a good pat on the bottom, gets the kid's attention. But when you go to the extreme and you literally want them to learn a lesson, not to touch the hot stove that I didn't even think about touching the hot stove, that's never fazed me, then they'll learn it one way or another. You don't have to inflict pain on them. That's why I feel like discipline should be taught differently. That just because a kid is getting into something doesn't mean you should demand a spanking for each damn situation. Sometimes they're just curious, and especially little kids, they're curious. They'll make a mess, but it's like, you silly bastard. I was like, what the heck? Um, Because I've seen things like that with my nieces and nephews. I'm like, they're just getting into stuff. And then sometimes I would have triggers. I'm like, because I would yell at kids sometimes, but it's like, I don't know. Because I've gotten mad at kids before, like when I would watch my nieces and nephews. But a lot of it was just my own anger from my situations in life and stress with things that I personally was going through. But anyways, I just think it's important when you are disciplined, your intentions behind it, and to try to see the point of the child's perspective. Like, why are they getting into stuff? Is there something we need to talk about for curiosity? Because I grew up as a very curious kid. I'm always questioning things. I'm always wondering why, or why are you telling me this when it's another thing, or vice versa, always wanting to know why, or waiting on the other person to tell me what's the next move. Because I remember I was one time trying to read through a book, and I would tell my sister, now can I turn the page? Because it had a bell ring, like the book with a tape. I was like, now can I turn the page? Like 3 times I would say that, and then I got louder every time. It says, yes, now you can turn the page. And that's probably gotten to my whole validation from others to even do stuff. It's ridiculous. It's like you're a pawn almost. Anyways, back to the story of what happened to me as a child. After that happened shortly, I don't know if it was before or after, there's a black man. And like for me, I'm not racist. I'm just saying that, it was a black man, was in the church parking lot around kids, swinging the kids around and stuff, and then it was my turn. Well, when he swinged me around, he touched my butt. And in my mind, it was weird because I know everyone associates, and I've recently heard this, like, to me, it's a form of manipulation when some people do certain things, but it was inappropriate. Like, he was touching my butt. Uh, it's just weird. I mean, it's one thing to hold a child, but I don't know. For a grown man, it's kind of questionable. But anyways, He touched my butt, and to me, it felt good. It's weird how it sounds, but to me, it felt good. Like, I was kind of messed up about that for a while because sometimes I'd be like, when I seen a black man, it would make me feel weird. Like, it would remind me of that guy, especially if it looked like him. Because you know the guy on Green Mile, that one big black dude? That's what he looked like. His name was Sam. But it was weird because he stayed at our house for a couple days and found out weird stuff about him, like he's into porn, watching porn, and weird stuff. But, anyways, found out after that experience. It was funny because I didn't look at him like indifferent as a child. I just looked at him as a normal person where I'd be like, he was going to leave, and I said, "You're not coming to my birthday party." Because I thought he was weird and stuff. Um, but yeah, then I get weird thoughts, and recently I've had weird thoughts about something that happened when I was with my ex with bus kids. And that leads into that story because my ex husband, he was abusive, emotionally, mentally, not so much physically. There were questionable things physically. Like, his big thing was wrestling. And we went to this one church, and he drove the bus for the church. Like, his big mission in life was help troubled teenagers and to help troubled kids. But still to this day, it kind of questions my idea of what I saw. Like, it makes me feel guilty because I feel like I'm not assuming he is, but there's a lot of questionable things of almost something you don't really want to say, but like, I don't know. It's really hard because in the past with him, I've been criticized for speaking out my truth. So there's a lot of things about him that are questionable, especially when it comes to kids, which I'm sure you can fill into the blanks. And I'm not saying he is, but there's a lot of weird behavior. And maybe because he told me something that happened to him as a child, and sometimes it happens where you end up doing things to kids. But I've never seen quite things like that, but there would always be red flags. Like, he would say to the bus kids and call them his babies. And like, he said it in a tone like, "Baby." It just sounded creepy to me when I first heard him. Like, we're newly married, and our marriage was not a normal marriage. Like, he didn't want sex. And it just freaked me out because I felt like he had some questionable things that could make it sound like he's a pedophile. And like, a lot of people, they have bus kids come over, but and it kind of gets to me, like, what was the right thing to do and what wasn't. Like, is it okay to wrestle with kids? I feel like as an adult, but then these were like teens, but some younger than teens, like maybe in preteen. Like, we would wrestle with them, but he mainly wrestled with them. But like, he would pop their ass. Like, just pop their ass. That was questionable to me. And he had a big thing about the butt. Like, for me, we didn't have sex. He would sleep on the couch. I would sleep on the bed. And it's sad because I was a virgin when I got married, and I saved myself. And so there was a lot of painful things that I personally went through outside of church that a lot of people may not know. Not even of his family. Um, and to me, I don't see him the way I used to see him, but still there's a lot of questionable things because I met him on Facebook. Okay, and he was a part of the church that I was talking about and stuff. And there's a lot of things, like, I feel like when you're married, that are pretty normal, but for him, it was weird. I felt like there's a lot of toxicity. Maybe because there was, like, a lot of things he personally went through that I couldn't understand, like, the way he showed love to me. Because he would make sexual jokes at me or sexual references to things, and then he would sometimes just slap me on the ass, especially in public. And then he would act one way at church, and then right when we get in the car, not all the time, but like right when we get in the car, treat me like crap. And then at home, it's like, how can you put on a front on church? And a lot of people do it. Put on a front that everything is fine and showing dandy, not daddy, but showing off your wifey and making it sound like everything's good, but you're missing the ingredient. You're missing the love, affection at home and stuff. And I believe 2 years into our marriage, or a month, first of all, a month into our marriage, he said he didn't want to have sex. Like, he never found women attractive. Because he said, I could see a naked woman down the street and it does nothing to me. So, there's a lot of problems I saw, and a lot of things, like, I wanted children, but he didn't. And like he said, why adopt when you can, or not why adopt, why have your own child when you can adopt? I don't know, that got to me because I wanted children. And at that point, a lot of people teach, it's not all about having kids. I learned that about him. It's not all about having kids. And most people, they get married because they want a family and they want to settle down. But it's not all about it. I was like, my crystal drop. Pink one. I had a pink rose quartz right there. But like I said, back to the whole bus kids thing. Because I feel like there's a part of me that I wouldn't be surprised if things came out. If, like, he is a pedophile. And I'm not saying in any way, like, I don't even know if he watches my channel. But it's just questionable because he never wanted to have sex with me. And he had a thing about the whole, his mission, because he was hurt as a child, his whole mission was to help troubled teenagers. But another questionable thing that happened is a few times when one of the girls would act up, he said he needs to talk to her alone. And sometimes he would be in our parking lot at home or the apartments alone with her in the vehicle, just talking to her because he needs to talk to her alone. And not recently, but a few years ago, after, I think divorced him, or I was in the process of divorce, I found out from someone that he would ask this girl, have you been touched inappropriately, or something to that effect? Have you been touched by someone? And the person that told me that, he was irate. And I've talked to a few people about this. They've been kind of irate. But to me, what sticks in my head is the way he would say baby to these teen girls or kids. And the fact that he would pop them in the ass. Like, just pop them in the ass. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a little boy or a little girl. I'm like, why would a grown man do that around kids? It's one thing if you feel like they are your child, and that's it. Sorry. I didn't realize the thing was all doing. There's one thing if you, like, I feel like if you know them personally, but I mean, he did. He did. It's just